of white supremacy that pits us against each other and makes it a sin to be poor instead of just having it be a sin that poverty even exists in the richest country here. So let's dive, and then here in Pennsylvania, we are the Pennsylvania Poor People's Campaign, and we'll talk a little bit more later about how to get plugged into the Pennsylvania Poor People's Campaign. I know a lot of people here already are, yeah, let's just dive right in. Please, if you haven't already, please put your name, your pronouns, the area you're calling in from into the chat, and organization if you're a member of one. And I should introduce myself. I'm Rabbi Michael Pollack here in South Philly, he, him, his pronouns, and I'm with March on Harrisburg. So let's go right into just some opening words here. As the rabbi, I'm just going to seamlessly transition into an opening blessing. Tonight, we're going to be talking about healthcare, and far, on a deeper level than that, we're going to be talking about our responsibility to each other and our care for each other. Nizhmi is going to be leading us through an amazing program tonight. I'm going to pass it off to Nizhmi in a little bit, and just wanted to tell a quick story here. From a lobbying time. By the way, when Jews do opening blessings, we don't give blessings, we tell stories. It's what we do. So I'm just going to tell a quick story from lobbying. This was a few years ago with a representative who really did not like March on Harrisburg or the work that we were doing, and started off the meeting with about 15 minutes of restraining herself from screaming at us. She really wanted to yell at us for the way we protest and what we fight for, anti-corruption stuff. And she was very upset. And at one point she said, listen, I don't take these gifts, these things that we call bribes. I know my colleagues do, but I don't. And according to my Judeo-Christian values, I'm only responsible for my own behavior. And we said, no, that's not how that works. Those values say otherwise. There's a story in the book of Genesis where one brother murders another. Cain murders Abel, and God asks Cain the question, where is your brother? And Cain's answer is, am I my brother's keeper? It's a question. And as Rabbi Abraham Joshua Heschel said, the entire Bible is the answer to that question. And the answer is yes, you are your brother's keeper. You are your sibling's keeper. You are responsible for each other. And we live in a healthcare system that does not recognize that responsibility at all. And that's what we're talking about tonight. And that representative who said that, who had that worldview, that distorted moral narrative that says, I'm only responsible for my own behavior, that was Kathy Rapp, the former chair of the health committee in the State House in Harrisburg. And it's pretty indicative of the value set that drives our healthcare policy, the selfish, idolatrous, greed-driven healthcare system that we're here to destroy and build something beautiful. With that, I'm going to pass it over to Nizhmi and Julissa for the Mystica.
Okay, great. Thank you, Rabbi Michael. Hi, everybody. I'm Nizhmi. My pronouns are she or they. I'm coming from Clearfield, Pennsylvania, in the Pennsylvania Wilds, Central Appalachia region of PA. We're going to start off today with a Mishika. Another way of saying that is spirit of the struggle. It's a concept that we borrow from the landless workers movement in Brazil, one of the largest social movements in the world, and definitely the largest one in our hemisphere. And so this is a short video. It's actually from 2021. It was made in the lead up to that year's week of action. And I'm going to be talking a little bit later in this call about the 2023 week of action. This video was made in the lead up to the 2021 week of action. And it's talking about the healthcare crisis, the COVID-19 pandemic, and the Nonviolent Medicaid Army. So once again, this is a short video from 2021, but it touches on a lot of the themes that we're going to be talking about tonight. Thank you for sharing that, Julissa.
This is a super important conversation that we're about to have. I want to say a little bit about the Nonviolent Medicaid Army and then why we are gearing up for a week of action. So the Nonviolent Medicaid Army of the Poor is a growing militant force of the poor and dispossessed, united across identities, regions, races, and issues, modeled after Dr. Martin Luther King's Nonviolent Army of the Poor from the first Poor People's Campaign of 1968. Why Nonviolent Medicaid Army? Well, those who are on or excluded from Medicaid represent the diversity of the entire working class and are impacted by every single front of struggle there is, be it the fight for housing, living wages, food, education, freedom from debt, freedom of migration, or freedom from criminalization and incarceration. The fight for Medicaid is common to the North and the South of the US, and the fight for healthcare broadly unites the global working class. Any organization of the poor and dispossessed whose members are directly impacted by the fight for healthcare as a human right, or on any front of struggle faced by those who are on Medicaid, can and should join the Nonviolent Medicaid Army. It's the vehicle through which we can cohere leaders to assess the terrain and take strategic action together to grow the new and unsettling force into an unstoppable nonviolent army commensurate with the times we are living in. We're now 18 months into a global pandemic. We are in the richest country that's ever existed in the history of the world. We have democratic control of the White House and Congress, and still there has been no real expansion of healthcare during this time. We have the highest number of COVID deaths in the entire world, over 600,000. This is a concrete expression of our estimation that the fundamental problem of our time is the growing concentration of wealth in the hands of a few, while the vast majority is dispossessed. This is expressed through our class-based healthcare system, which also has racialized and gendered dimensions. In our experience, healthcare is a basic need and human right that can be a rallying point for the working class and help us build the unity that we so desperately need among the 140 million poor and low-income people in the US. It's a point of unity for the working class and a point of weakness for the ruling class, as they have no solutions to this crisis, and they have so much capital invested in the medical industrial complex. Therefore, the role of the Nonviolent Medicaid Army, which launched nationally in 2020, is to build the politically independent mass organization of the poor and dispossessed, using healthcare as a strategic vehicle to identify, develop, and unite leaders, to connect issues and engage in fusion organizing, and to expose the root causes of all fronts of struggle. That's what I wanted to say.
Thanks so much, Julissa. So hopefully that was helpful and a little bit of an introduction to where we're coming from. And once again, I'll just say I'm Nijmi Zakia Zarinko. I'm a co-founder of Put People First PA, also a former tri-chair of the Pennsylvania Poor People's Campaign and member of the National Steering Committee. And Put People First PA is a member of the Pennsylvania Poor People's Campaign Coordinating Committee. And we are a completely member-led statewide organization. We are staff-free, meaning that our members lead the organization and do all of the work of the organization. And we have been around since 2012. We have healthcare rights committees in 5 regions of the state that cover more than 40 counties. And the reason that we're here tonight partnering with the Poor People's Campaign for the August monthly educational is because we are in the midst of a massive fight back against Medicaid cuts that are taking place across this country right now. And up to 1.2 million people in Pennsylvania will be affected by this. And we are engaging in a Medicaid cutoffs organizing drive to identify, develop, and unite leaders and bring them into our movement as we fight back against these healthcare cuts. So tonight, I'm going to share some information on what's happening. And then we're going to have the opportunity to have some discussion as well, and for folks to share what you're experiencing, what's happening with you. And we'll also be getting into some tools that are part of this organizing drive and actions that you can take tonight, actions that you can take even while we are in this meeting, immediately after this meeting. I will be talking about a toolkit that you can download and share with people in your life, your family, friends, community. I'm going to be talking about a petition to Governor Shapiro and Secretary Arkush to ask them to demand that they halt the Medicaid cuts and several other demands that we're actually going to be taking to Harrisburg as part of our week of action about a month from now. And I'm also going to be talking about Medicaid Mondays, which is a social media campaign to share our stories about Medicaid, why it matters to us, and what's at stake in these cutoffs, and to show that we oppose them. So those are 3 actions that we can take tonight and tomorrow in the coming days: the petition, sharing the toolkit, and participating in Medicaid Mondays. So with that, I will get into sharing some about what's going on. Then we'll be able to get into sharing our own experiences before we move on to our next steps and closing. So Julissa, thank you so much for being on tonight, being on the coordinating committee and doing tech for us tonight. So here's where we are. Hopefully you're in the right meeting. This is the Pennsylvania Poor People's Campaign, monthly educational, and the topic tonight is Medicaid cuts equals death. This is about what's happening and also how we are fighting back. And I want to say that at the recent Moral Poverty Action Congress that happened in DC, where over 700 leaders from around the country in the Poor People's Campaign came together to pressure Congress around the 3rd Reconstruction Resolution, we learned that new research shows that poverty is the 4th leading cause of death in the United States today. Poverty is the 4th leading cause of death in the US today. And what that means is that poverty is really social murder, right? Poverty is a policy choice and it is policy violence. And if poverty equals death, then certainly Medicaid cuts equal death. Medicaid cuts are a death sentence, as we have seen and as we continue to see. And so thank you, Julia. So we can go to the next slide. So we're going to talk a bit about the Put People First PA, Nonviolent Medicaid Army, Medicaid Cutoffs Organizing Drive 2023. You can keep going. So as you could, and as we could imagine, during the COVID-19 pandemic, Medicaid growth really skyrocketed. More and more people started to get their healthcare through Medicaid, which makes sense, right? Folks were losing their jobs, all kinds of disruptions due to the pandemic, and the way that the ruling class responded to that pandemic meant that more and more of us were thrown out of work, thrown into crisis. And so enrollment in Medicaid, which is the public health insurance program for low-income people, low-income working class people in this country, grew by 23% over the course of the pandemic. And there are now more than 90 million people on Medicaid or CHIP, which is the Children's Health Insurance Program. You can keep going. And for a long time last year, the Nonviolent Medicaid Army that Put People First PA is part of was tracking the public health emergency, because we believed that the public health emergency ending would also signal the ending of this continuous coverage that happened under Medicaid during the pandemic. So you can go to the next slide and we'll see more about this. So the public health emergency began in January of 2020, and this declaration mandated certain protections, including continuous coverage under Medicaid, meaning that people enrolled in Medicaid on or after 3/18/20 could not be dropped from the Medicaid rolls as long as the public health emergency was in effect. So for a long time, we were tracking this public health emergency because we believed that as long as that was in effect, folks would be protected and this continuous coverage mandate would be respected. You can keep going. However, at the end of 2022, federal congressional leaders from both the Republican and Democratic parties unveiled a spending bill that beginning April 1st would strip Medicaid coverage from millions of people, including 1.2 million here in Pennsylvania. So this was a bipartisan decision. It was signed by President Biden. And basically what it said was that rather than wait for the public health emergency to expire, this provision in the omnibus spending bill reduces and eliminates extra federal funding for Medicaid, effectively saying you can start, to kick people off. It eliminates the requirement that states keep people on Medicaid, regardless of changes in income or other status. So this bipartisan decision signed by President Biden, it resulted in massive cuts starting on April 1st around the country. The estimates of how many people will lose their health care around the country really varies. It varies from say 15 to 24 million. We really won't know the impact until the year is out and even beginning into next year. But we do know that this is a crisis of massive proportions, and advocates say that it is the biggest change in the healthcare landscape since the passage of the ACA. The biggest change in the healthcare landscape since the passage of the ACA. So that's a pretty big deal, with, again, up to 24 million people losing their healthcare through this process. So you can keep going. So it is estimated that up to half of those dropped from Medicaid in PA, or around 500,000 people, will be dropped simply because of paperwork, again, procedural reasons. Now, there's two reasons, right, that are the main sort of categories that the state uses. One is, okay, you didn't get your paperwork in time, sort of procedural reasons like that. And the other one is quote unquote eligibility. Now, we want to push back against this framework of eligibility. Why? Well, it's something that we do in the Poor People's Campaign, quite frankly, right? In the Poor People's Campaign, we quibble with, we push back against, we reject, right? The tabulating of who is poor in this country, right? According to the US state, there's millions of fewer people who are poor and dispossessed in this country than the way that the Poor People's Campaign calculates it, which is 200% of the federal poverty line. Why? Because the federal poverty line hasn't been updated in decades. It's based on a completely outdated measure, right? So we talk about 140 million poor and dispossessed people in this country, right, using that supplemental measure. And in the same way, we really reject the idea that only certain people should be eligible for Medicaid. I think we all know folks who make pennies and dollars over the pathetically low income limit and can't afford health care, and they should also be eligible for Medicaid. In fact, we call for Medicaid for all. And so half of the people are being cut because of the so-called eligibility, and half are being cut just because of paperwork reasons. Neither one, in our estimation, is justified. Both of them are unjustified. No one should be losing their health care right now. What we have been saying, and we're going to talk more about the fight back, but we have been across the state, in person, on the ground, in our people's clinics, door knocking, and online, letting thousands upon thousands of people know something that is not being promoted by the official channels, which is that everyone who gets a cutoff notice has the legal right to an appeal. And in fact, everyone who is cut off should appeal. And we are helping people to appeal. Every single person has the right to appeal. There are administrative courts where in-person appeals happen, and they're located in certain parts of the state, not everywhere, but Erie, Pittsburgh, Harrisburg, Reading, Philadelphia, and Plymouth, which is in Northeast PA. Hearings can also happen over the phone. We are encouraging people to appeal and then request an in-person hearing, because we need to make a real issue out of the situation. We need to lift it up. We need to get it into the media. We need to take action around these appeals. That's what we're doing and supporting people to do if they're comfortable with that. So you can go to the next slide. So I already started talking about this, but I'll keep going. And you can keep going, Jalissa, thank you. So the goals of this organizing drive, which again has already been underway. We started this right at the beginning of 2023 because we have been tracking this crisis, the ending of the public health emergency, and then later the omnibus bill and the cutoffs. We've been tracking that for quite a long time. So this organizing drive is already underway. Some of the goals are to make the invisible visible and change the narrative. We talk a lot in the Poor People's Campaign about how we shift the narrative by changing the narrator. And that is absolutely what we're doing in this Medicaid cutoffs organizing drive. We're looking to grow our political independence, meaning our independence from both of the major parties. We are political, but we do not take our marching orders from either of those parties. And there's very important reasons why that I will actually go into even more as we continue here. We're trying to hold all power holders accountable, build our base and grow our movement, and continue to become political centers of gravity in our regions. And what that means is that we're visible, that people know that they can come to us, and that we are organizing and we have a plan. Our demands are to stop the cutoff, to expand Medicaid to all residents, with some of the now, I believe, $15 billion surplus that the state has. Restore the adult dental benefit in Medicaid, and pass a public health care advocate for Pennsylvania. We're not going to get deep into all these demands tonight, but we just wanted to make sure to share what they are. There's a ton of tactics and tools as part of this organizing drive. Once again, in case you missed in the beginning, I want to emphasize that Put People First PA is a statewide member-led organization. We are staff-free. All of the work of our organization happens through the commitment and the leadership of our members. These are some of the things that we have already done and are continuing to do as part of this organizing drive. We've conducted Know Your Rights trainings, media and spokesperson trainings. We have created a Know Your Rights toolkit that is designed to be shared with everyone across the state, that helps folks know what their rights are and how to file an appeal. We have been doing appeal support and actions around appeals. So we've been helping people file appeals and helping people take action at their court hearings by holding rallies outside, speaking to the media, and then also accompanying people inside for their hearing. We've already helped folks keep their care. We've helped folks, make these appeals. They've been successful largely. And what we've seen is that even just the, even just stating that we're going to do an appeal or our intention to do an appeal can sometimes help people keep their health care. We've had a situation where the response from the welfare office was like, don't do an appeal, we'll just leave your health care on. We've been doing Medicaid Mondays, which is a social media drive I mentioned before. That's very much related to making the invisible visible and shifting the narrative by changing the narrator. We cannot allow simply elected officials, the parties, or the profiteers to tell us about what's going on with this situation. We have to be, as people who are on or excluded from Medicaid, stating what is happening here. We cannot allow them to frame the issue. And so Medicaid Mondays And all of our work in the media is around shifting that narrative. We have a petition against the Medicaid cuts. We're going to be delivering that during our week of action. So we're going to ask you tonight to share that, to sign it and to share it. We have people's clinics going on around the state. That is one of our projects of survival. We do free health screening clinics all across the state. And at these people's clinics, we are letting people know that these cuts are happening, what their rights are, how they can fight back, and how they can join with us to fight back, not only for themselves, but for all the 1.2 million people in Pennsylvania and beyond who are impacted by this. At door knocking drives, we're doing the same thing, talking about the Medicaid cutoffs organizing drive. We have the Nonviolent Medicaid Army Week of Action coming up September 17th to the 23rd. This is when we'll actually have caravans launching from different parts of the state, convening on Harrisburg, delivering our petition, and doing and holding all power holders accountable. And we also have PA Healthcare Stories legislative cards, where we're flooding legislative offices with people's healthcare experiences, so that legislators can't tell us that they didn't know what was going on, which is something that they have tried to do. They've tried to tell us, well, we haven't heard much from our constituents on this. Well, we're changing that. A lot of times they haven't heard much from their constituents because their constituents don't know who they are, and why would they, right? So we don't turn that blame onto our class. We simply work to help connect people to legislators so that we can hold them accountable. So these are some of our tactics and tools. This is a picture from one of our people's clinics. This was in Altoona, Pennsylvania, just so you get a little picture of that. And now we're just gonna look briefly at the toolkit that I mentioned before. And we will, thank you, Jalissa. It's right over on the right-hand side. You can see it in the folder, all the way on the right. It's the one, yeah, sorry, go back.
Oh, sorry. Here, I'll stop sharing.
Yeah, so it's the PDF that's all the way on the right, and it's colorful. Yeah,
Sorry about that.
There you go. Perfect. Okay, so this is the toolkit, and I'll share in the chat a link to our website landing page where you can actually download this toolkit. And I don't know if you can make it a little bit bigger, Julissa, down in the bottom. Looks like you maybe can. Awesome, beautiful. So here's the toolkit. If you want to just kind of scroll down slowly, Julissa, that would be awesome. It states our demands. Then it goes into an example of a press release. We've actually been doing advisories the first Monday of every month since these cutoffs started. You can keep going down. And then we've got some sample letters to the editor. We conducted a letters to the editor drive also, and we got a lot of letters published. So here are some examples. Then we've got the social media Medicaid Mondays campaign, social media campaign guide in here that really explains, you know, how to be part of this social media campaign and how easy it is, right? To just make a picture of yourself with a short blurb or a hashtag and just explain a little bit about why Medicaid matters to you, why you oppose these cuts. Then, if you keep going, there's some tips for how to defend your rights with the welfare office, the chart that shows the income guidelines for Medicaid, and then what a Medicaid cutoff notice looks like so that you can really look out for this in the mail. And if it comes to you, you can make sure that you understand what it is. We know that a lot of the mail that comes in is confusing, it's not clear. And so we want people to know exactly what this notice looks like so that you can stay on top of that mail and act right away if you get such a notice. Keep going. And then there's the steps for how to file an appeal and get a hearing. And then there's legal resources across the country. So there's resources in various states and contacts for the Nonviolent Medicaid Army, because we are in a number of states around the country. And so I'll put right now in the chat where you can find this toolkit and download it right from this landing page on our website, Put People First PA, No Medicaid Cutoffs. If you go there, you can actually download that toolkit and use it yourself and share it. It's meant to be shared. It's meant to be shared with friends and family. We know that, you know, we're not going to be able to help 1 million people file appeals, but we can put something in people's hands that can help them to navigate the situation, and, you know, can be a useful resource, right? And so that's the purpose of the toolkit. Next, I did reference the Medicaid Mondays guide, but we could also share that with people just to see it. So once again, there's the landing page, and you can see that each of these things is right there on the page. The Medicaid Mondays guide, which we, yeah, that's perfect. So that's just so folks can kind of see it. Once again, it's every single Monday we are sharing our opposition to these cuts, why Medicaid matters to us, and what's at stake for us, right? It's very powerful. We know, again, in the For People's campaign that many times, right, we as poor and dispossessed people don't participate, right, and aren't shifting the narrative, not because we don't want to, but because we don't hear the powers that be talking about our issues. And that's no different with this Medicaid unwinding situation, right? Unwinding is what the Democratic Party is calling a massive healthcare purge. So neither party is talking about it, and when they are, they're using language that is purposefully obscuring what is actually taking place, which is massive Medicaid cutoffs. This is another reason why our political independence is so important. So this is what the guide looks like, and it really takes you through the process of doing Medicaid Mondays. I really want to ask folks here to participate in that. We're actually going to be making a quilt of all the Medicaid Mondays posts to take with us to Harrisburg. So we're using this to build our collective power. And lastly, I want to draw your attention to the petition. And this petition, which again, you can sign it right now, you can share it. And that's the button that says, Tell Governor Shapiro No Medicaid Cutoffs. Yeah, it's just right there. Perfect. Thank you. And this petition actually shows and talks about the situation. So it's not just here's a petition and sign it. There's a whole letter. It actually really explains what the situation is. It lays out our demands. As Put People First PA, we will never, ever sell your contact information. We don't do anything with it other than invite you to be part of this movement and let you know what's going on with the healthcare crisis. We don't spam and constantly, you know, hit people up. We're not doing anything like that. But the petition is a really powerful tool. And again, we will be delivering it to Governor Shapiro and Secretary Arkush during our week of action. So those are 3 concrete things that you can do coming off of this meeting. Download the toolkit, read it, share it with people, sign this petition, share it with folks, and look at the Medicaid Mondays guide and take part in Medicaid Mondays this coming Monday or any upcoming Monday as well. So I wanted to make sure to you know, share the information, but also really concrete ways to get involved with and support this Medicaid Cutoffs organizing drive. So now what I'd like to do is have some time for folks to share how you have been impacted by these Medicaid cuts, what's at stake for you, why you oppose these cuts. And we'll just take some time to hear from folks here. You can put your name in the chat if you would like to get on stack. Of course, you can also use the raise your hand feature. That's good too. The first person I'm going to call on is Harrison. And then after that, please put your name in the chat if you'd like to speak, if you'd like to share your story. If you're on the phone and you can't put your name in the chat, that's fine. You can come off mute and say that too. But yes, thank you, Harrison. Go ahead.
Thank you, Nijmi. Hello, PA Poor People's Campaign. My name is Harrison. I use he, him pronouns. I'm in Put People First, Pennsylvania. And I am participating in these Medicaid cutoffs organizing drive because I know that we need to fight for Medicaid. And I am sick of having my Medicaid just messed with and messed around with. And I know that we have to fight for it. Like Put People First helped me get on Medicaid. And the period of continuous coverage was really amazing. And then when they announced that they would start cutting people off and doing these so-called redeterminations, I got really worried because I'm on a program called Medical Assistance for Workers with Disabilities. So I can get Medicaid even though I make a little bit more than the income limit. And come April, they were asking me to prove that I had a disability again, to go through this whole process that was really humiliating. And then just a month ago, this has happened to me on Medicaid before. When I moved from one county to another, I recently moved from Philadelphia County to Clearfield County. And they cut my Medicaid because I switched counties, and there's a lapse in my care because they have to send me all of this new paperwork again. And I can't see the doctor because I don't have a doctor yet. And it's all because these managed care organizations they have to basically claim me, and they're getting in the way of me getting health care. These are just companies that are privatizing our Medicaid. And so I know that whether it's the Medicaid cuts, even before that, we were fighting for Medicaid. And so we need to fight for Medicaid, and we know they can give everyone Medicaid. They did it during COVID. And so that's why I'm in this fight, because I need my Medicaid and everyone needs Medicaid.
Thank you so much, Harrison. Thank you. Thank you. And Jess, want to go next?
Sure. It is currently pouring. Can you hear me okay?
Yep.
Yep, we hear you.
Okay, awesome. So I am also, my name's Jessica. I use she, her pronouns, and I am also with Put People First PA. And I'm fighting, I'm part of this movement, part of this organizing drive, because I have been on Medicaid before and had a period of time where I was able to get the care I need. Some chronic things I had ignored, I was able to get testing and all of that, and had the longest stretch of continuous mental health care coverage that I've ever had in my 45 years. And I was cut off of it. I had been on it because I was unemployed. And then as I worked through that and I found work and I went back to work part-time, and that was fine. But then when I bumped up to full-time, I was just a little bit over, I think it was, the cutoff was 20,000. I was just a little bit over 20,000. And they cut me off, and that was about 5 years ago. And since that happened, I have not had continuous care for anything, not medical, not dental, not mental health, not my vision. I've had to pay out of pocket for all of my dental care, all of my glasses and contacts. And I have been accumulating debt to take care of other things when I like have to go to the doctor. And I also just wanted to say that, you know, I've been thinking a lot as I've been part of this drive and as I've been out there organizing, just thinking a lot about that, changing the narrative and how vital it is that we are all participating in getting out there and sharing our stories, because you know, there's so much stigma around this, and there are, you know, the narrative that we are lazy, that we are you know, this divide and conquer strategy where they just want us fighting each other, and they want us using our time, using our resources, using our emotional energy to point fingers at each other based on who we think is deserving, and scapegoating other groups. You know, we decide this group is undeserving, so we scapegoat them and deny them care just to help ourselves. And this whole system is just so wrong and backwards. And the only way to change that is to get the truth out there, to get our stories out there. And we can't do that without every one of us stepping up and sharing and telling our stories and doing Medicaid Mondays and all of the petition and all these different pieces. So just really want to encourage everyone. You know, there's a saying with like substance abuse, with like the 12-step, it only works if we work it. And we is me and you and everyone here on this meeting.
Thank you so much, Jess. Yes. Thank you so much for that agitation. I see some comments in the chat, appreciating that. Anyone want to just come off mute or continue to put your name in the chat if you'd like to go next? Really encourage you, if you are on or excluded from Medicaid, if you're afraid you might get cut off, if you want to share anything about your experience with Medicaid, this is a space where we invite you to do that. We welcome you to do that. Cool. Well, while you're considering whether you would like to share, I just want to say again that everyone who gets a cutoff notice has the right to file an appeal. And Put People First PA is supporting people to file appeals. We have had a good amount of success with it so far. This is a very useful tactic. It's not empty words. It's a very useful tactic that has historical roots, right? When the National Welfare Rights Union, that was part of the original Poor People's Campaign, the National Welfare Rights Organization, part of what they did in their organizing around welfare rights was to fight for their legal rights to welfare, right? And they would do actions on welfare offices, and they would file appeals when there were cuts. These are historical tactics that we're using, rooted in movements of the poor and dispossessed, including the movements that were part of the original Poor People's Campaign of 1968. And so filing healthcare appeals, filing appeals for these Medicaid cuts is a very useful tactic. It helps us develop our leadership. It helps us make the invisible visible. It builds unity. And it also works. It also works to keep people on their health care. So this is something that we're doing, and we want everybody to repeat this, to share this, talk to people about it on the bus, talk to people about it when you're waiting in line on the grocery store. You've heard about these cuts. If you get a cutoff notice, you have the right to file an appeal. And there's an organization that can help you to do that as well, and who's fighting not just for individuals, but to make clear that this is a systemic and structural problem, and we need a movement of the poor and dispossessed to transform this and all of the other systems. And I'll go to Karim next.
Hey all, thanks Najmi, thanks everyone for sharing and for that awesome presentation. I use he, they pronouns. I'm calling from Massachusetts and doing some canvassing as part of the Nonviolent Medicaid Army National Organizing Drive here. And so I just wanted to share my connection to this issue and the importance of universality. So for me, my dad was the main kind of breadwinner in my family. My family is they're immigrants from Algeria, and in the big recession in like 2002, he lost his job. And then my mom, who hadn't worked before but was a teacher in Algeria, was volunteering in the school, but then she became an instructional assistant for kids with special ed. And the reason she did that was that so all of her 5 kids could continue to have healthcare. That was like the entire motivation for her to get that job. And it was a hard job for her to have. It was her first time being full-time employed in this country. And then I was in school and, you know, Obamacare made it so that you could be on your parents' insurance until you're 26. But I turned 26 while I was in school, and I was paying a lot to be in school, and I still have a lot of debt from being in school for so long. And Medicaid is the reason that I was able to still have healthcare while I was in school. And it was something that I deserved, and it was something that I needed then. And I had healthcare issues that I could get taken care of and not have it like tank my grades and stuff, because it was there and I didn't have to fight anybody to get on it. I was just considered eligible. I have healthcare through my job now, but when we're canvassing for the Nonviolent Medicaid Army, you know, a big narrative we encounter, and when we have to fight against this narrative, is that like, oh, well, I have insurance, so I'm good. Like the whole point of saying Medicaid for all, the whole point of fighting against the entire premise of like an income cutoff is that anyone could need Medicaid at any point. And so we need to have continuous care for everybody. Like that's what we're fighting for. And so that's why we organize people who are on or excluded from Medicaid. So glad to be here with y'all. Thanks everyone for the agitation.
Thank you so much, Kareem. Thank you. And thank you for also helping remind us that this is a national movement. Really appreciate you calling in from Massachusetts. We also have Linda here from Wyoming. Really appreciate you being here, Linda. And, you know, maybe others as well. So yes, is there anyone else who would like to share about your experience, what's going on with you right now, if you have been cut in the past, or you may be getting cut now, or anything else you might want to share about your experience? Okay, well, I know that we have, you know, folks here who are getting connected to the PA Poor People's Campaign, maybe already are, and connected to some of our organizations that are in the campaign. And so I know there's a lot coming up. I'm going to pass it now back to Rabbi Michael to share about what's coming up, what's happening. And I'm also going to reshare some of these links to actions that you can take today in the chat. So I'll be resharing the link to our website landing page, which has the toolkit available for you to download, the petition available for you to sign and share, and the Medicaid Mondays guide. I'll also reshare in the chat the Put People First PA Facebook, where you can see a lot of examples of Medicaid Mondays to get ideas and inspiration to do your own.
Excellent. Thank you so much, Nijmi. Thank you so much, Harrison, Jess, Kareem, everyone who shared. Thank you all so much for everything that Put People First is doing. And thank you all. So I'm just going to kind of close this out here with a few upcoming events and ways to join. And I'm sorry, I got to pull up the links here. Okay, so first way to join the Pennsylvania Poor People's Campaign is to join one of the member organizations. Every member organization is a base building organization that takes in new members, and we all have active campaigns. Those member organizations are groups like ACT UP Philadelphia, Coalition to Abolish Death by Incarceration, Every Mother is a Working Mother Network, Global Women's Strike, Women of Color, Marcellus Outreach Butler, March on Harrisburg, Movement of Immigrant Leaders in Pennsylvania, Payday Men's Network, Thomas Merton Center, Unitarian Universalist Justice PA, Pittsburgh for Public Transit, Put People First PA, PA Debt Collective, Common Defense. Did I say them twice? Nope. And then, yes. And yep, thank you, Jalissa, for posting that in the chat there. The list of all of the member orgs is there in the chat. The other way to join the Pennsylvania Poor People's Campaign is to join a working group. And I'm going to post in the chat here in a sec a link to do that. This is a form to fill out to join a working group within the Pennsylvania Poor People's Campaign. Those working groups are Action Logistics, Media and Communications, Faith Leaders, Outreach /base building, Arts and Culture, Fundraising, and Underground Railroad /Projects of Survival. Please do join one of those working groups by filling out that link that is in the chat there. A few things that are coming up here in the future. On August 12th, this Saturday at 11 a.m., Put People First is doing an amazing learning session on fighting cancer and poverty, fighting for our human right to healthcare. And then, Nishmi, can I kick it back to you to just give the action pitch one more time for everything you talked about tonight?
Yes, absolutely. Once again, I just want to thank everyone here for everything that you do. Everyone here is so much appreciated. In the PA Poor People's Campaign, we say forward together, not one step back. And once again, I just want to encourage folks to take actions from this meeting tonight. We have provided a number of steps you can take. We want to get these petition signatures to 1,000 before we get it to Harrisburg. We're well on the way. Everyone that we're encountering is sharing it with 10 folks. So let's move this petition so we can deliver it to Harrisburg with a huge visual of all of our Medicaid Mondays. Really want to encourage folks to take part in that. If not this Monday, then a coming Monday, any Monday will do. And reach out. We can help you and support you to do that. And then also, please do share the toolkit widely and let everyone know that they have the right to file an appeal. As Jess said so well, this is a massive social problem which requires a massive social movement. We like to say that we cannot outfight or outmight, outmoney the small group of people that we're up against, but we can outmaneuver them, right? We can outsmart them, we can outorganize them. And what the Poor People's Campaign is doing is organizing to unite us across all lines of division, across the entire state, in every city, in every county, in every town, in every rural place. And what's also true about all those places is that there are folks on Medicaid in all of them, on or excluded from Medicaid. And so this fight around Medicaid is objectively uniting our class, the working class. And so we say, who are we? The Medicaid Army. And we say, forward together, not one step back. So let's do that chant to close, unless you have something else, Michael.
Nijmi, I failed the facilitation closing out here. I should have passed it to you for the last word, but I passed it to you with 4 announcements still to go. So one sec. One more thing to join, and you're going to see a link in the chat here. Pennsylvania Action on Climate is doing a Tour de Pack, a bicycle ride across Pennsylvania, going to impacted communities impacted by ecological devastation. You can sign up at the link there. The Pennsylvania Debt Collective is doing its Jubilee School this summer. Please learn more and sign up in the link that's coming in the chat there in a second. And then if you want to join March on Harrisburg in lobbying this summer for the gift ban bill and for ranked choice voting, there's a link coming in the chat there. And then one more reminder, Put People First Nonviolent Medicaid Army Week of Action is going to be September 17th to the 23rd. It's going to be a big week of action. Nishmi, let me kick it back to you to close us out. Thank you very much, all. Good to see you.
Great. Thank you, Michael. And once again, thank you so much for being here tonight. And you can go ahead and come off mute, and I will say forward together, and y'all say not one step back. All right, forward together.
Not one step back.
Forward together.
Not one step back.
Beautiful. One last time. Forward together.
Not one step back.
Thank you all so much, everyone. Have a wonderful night, and we'll talk to you soon.
You all.
Good night. Thanks, everybody.
Bye. Love to